Hi, Jeremy. Be with you in a minute. Just sorting out our audio. Oh, where's my microphone? It's all the way up there. Sorry about noise. Noisy. Hi, Neil. Nice to see you there. I will be with you in a minute. Just check. Yep, that seems to be working. I guess there's some sound coming out at your end. And now I have lost the questions. So where's the chat gone? There it is down there. That across there, that up there. Hi, Derek and Daryl and Tony. Evening, everybody. Organised after a fashion, as always, at the last minute. But very warm welcome to How to Repair Pendulum Clocks and Happy New Year 2022. Wishing you all, evening, Ian. Wishing you all a healthy, happy and prosperous year. It's certainly already quite an unusual year. I was in the shop across the road yesterday. It's kind of like a DIY shop, a hardware shop. Hi, Franklin. Hi, Franklin. And they were commenting that already it's a bit crazy, and no wonder. Many people got all sorts of worries and under all sorts of pressures and concerns about money and work and health and all sorts. So hopefully our micro contribution helps. Oh, hi, Daryl. Nice to see you on your lunch break. Oh dear, I'm sorry about that. Anyway, hopefully you can catch up with the rest on the recording. Okay, so if you're new here this evening, very warm welcome. As always, we are How to Repair Pendulum Clocks, and we do quite a range of things, including a Facebook group, which has been super lively recently. Welcome to that live stream. We've got an archive of some Clock Club stuff that we did. So anyway, check us out. If you can't find what you're looking for, then please ask. So this is our second live stream clock. It's an American clock from the turn of the 19th, 20th century. It's dated 1900. Not something that I'm particularly familiar with, but over the past months, we've taken it apart. We've done some repairs. Last week, we reassembled it or got it together. And it looks so far, cross fingers, okay. So this evening, we're going to oil the mechanism. Didn't do any oiling last week other than the springs before I put the thing together. Going to oil the winding mechanism. As you see, the springs are quite tight. Then I'm going to de-rust the hands. We're going to harden the pallets because we did some work on those. And then if we get time, we're going to think about putting it back in a case. The glasses here, which I've found, which we need to clean. So plenty to do. So first thing, just going to get some oil. I don't know whether on these clocks, on the lifting pieces, one might use grease on there. I'm just going to use oil today, but if you wanted to use the grease, I've got, where is it? Here. It's got tape on it to stop it from leaking out. But this Mobius 9501 synthetic grease, which is really good. Might try that. I'm always a bit worried about greases in open bearings because they tend just to get pushed out of the way and never return. Hi, Jim. And so I tend to stick with oil, but right. So as always, I'm just using my two oils, which are pretty much everything I use nowadays for the vast majority of clocks that I work on. that is Mobius D3 and Mobius D5, which is part mineral and part natural oil. You could use a fully synthetic oil, of course, if you want, or you could use one oil fits all. It's one of those things that people seem to get incredibly animated about, and I think there are some hierarchies with oiling, which one day I'll try and write down until anybody, unless somebody gets there before me, and please, you're all encouraged to write things down. And there are the sort of factors, maybe that's not the right word, but are that in a clock, you oil the bearing surfaces like you do in most machines and mechanism, other than I'll get a pointy stick. So for beginners, million trillion pointy stick avalanche. So for beginners, the wheels, what we call the mobiles, oh, there we are, there's the avalanche police are here, run in plates. Now, interestingly, in this clock, for most of the bearings, they are just iron or steel arbors and pivots, axles, if you like, in steel bearings, which is really unusual. Vast majority of clocks you'll find a combination, like we see here on these great wheel arbors, of steel bearings running in brass holes. And the reason that clocks are made like that is because steel and brass, dissimilar materials, have got a relatively low coefficient of friction. They tend not to stick together, whereas brass on brass is actually quite a bad sort of bearing surface in that respect, as is steel on steel, not quite as bad. Anyway, so we put oil here on all these little bearings, and wherever some kind of lubrication where other bearing surfaces are. But what we don't oil, which sounds a bit counterintuitive, is where the wheels and the small gears called pinions mesh together. And we don't oil those, not because the clock would actually probably run better if there was lubrication there, but because oil attracts dust. These clock cases aren't particularly well sealed, and that dust contains some inorganic material, and organic material, but it's the inorganic material that's the killer, and that accelerates wear. So clock gears tend to run without added lubrication. Right, so that's what we're going to do first. So I've got my oil stand here, and I've got a little wire, as you can just about see there, hopefully, if I hold it still, which is called an oiler, but it's just a piece of wire, really. So might invest in some glasses so I can see what I'm doing. And that's marginally better. And let's just, right, okay. So obviously when you're oiling, what you don't want to do is to forget anything, which is a good idea, and particularly for beginners, but everybody can make this mistake, is that you can see there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, I don't know, 40, let's say, or 50 places that are oiled on this clock. And it's easy to miss one, which isn't the end of the world, because we haven't cleaned this clock or degreased it as such in a degreaser. So the whole thing is actually already a bit oily, if you like. But you don't want to miss any of the bearings, because obviously it could run for years and years and years, and you'll have exacerbated wear. So it's a good idea, and I'm not a big fan of test stands, but if you do your repairs in that way, to oil, run the clock for a bit, and then before the clock goes off to a client, if you are working commercially, or whether it goes back in the case and that's the end of the project, then it's just to go around and check that you've got lubrication in all those holes. And the way to do that is just to do it visually, somewhere here in the avalanche drawer. I've got low power magnification. So you would just go around, look at all the bearings and check you can see oil. So that's the kind of first level of hierarchy, that there is some oil of any kind, doesn't matter. Some is better than none, that's for sure. So the next part of the hierarchy, and I'm not quite sure I've got this in the right order, is that oil is in the right place, as I've said, in the bearings and not on the wheel teeth and pinion leaves. And again, people get incredibly animated about spraying clocks with oil, which isn't recommended. But again, you know, I'm absolutely not saying to do it. But the problem with spraying a clock with oil, yes, it might get it to run, but you've got no control over where the oil goes, and it'll go on the wheel teeth, which is going to be problematic in the medium to longer term. So oil in the right place is the second thing, I think. And then you've got two other issues. One is the right amount of oil. None is no good. Too much, and the oil will tend to run out of the bearings and down the plate. So the third part of the hierarchy is the right amount of oil. And then the fourth, and in my view, least important thing, test stands. Yeah. Well, it's, I don't think Jonas isn't here tonight because he can't do Thursdays. He's probably working or something. But his test stand, Jonas Troyer's test stand, gets such a credible amount of admiration that I've kind of like given up really on my test stand tirade. Just for anybody who's new here, who's picked up on Daryl's comment, the thing is, a clock comes with the absolutely perfect test stand, and it's called the clock case. So I would tend to obviously check it over, and then put the mechanism in its case. But I know why people like test stands. I do get it. So what I'm doing here is I'm oiling the bottom end of what I call the bottom end of the train. So these bearings around here that are relatively slow moving and heavily loaded with a more viscous oil that can withstand higher pressures. And I'll oil the faster moving and less loaded bearings with a less viscous oil. So in watch work, you might have as many as 5 different oils for different parts of the mechanism. Now, I used to use 3, but came to the conclusion that life was a bit short for that. As I said, I think the right kind of oil is important, of course. I'm not dismissing it, but it's the least important of all those things. So I'm oiling these little levers, the bearings with D3 and our fly. What I might do with the fly, because the bearings on this clock are quite worn and it's all quite noisy, is on something like a 30-hour duration European long case clock, where the fly bearings are often really noisy, is you can oil that with a slightly heavier oil, which will dampen the whole thing down a bit, but it'll obviously take energy out the system. So here we've got our fly, which is the air brake that regulates the speed of striking. Shouldn't really run it without any oil on. You can see it operating there. So we're going to put a bit of oil on these bearings here. 1, 2, and 3. Just squeeze it around a little bit. And then I think we've gotten everything there on the back plate. Okay, I haven't done inside the plates yet. So a bit more on these big bearings here. Oh, and I haven't done that one either, the hammer. There we go. Yeah, everything needs to be oiled. The winding work, you always know if your clock is not working well because of squeaks. If you ever get clocks that are squeaking, then that's a pretty sure indication that you've missed something on the lubrication. Now, last week when I put together the great wheel assembly and the winding work here, I did lubricate this, but I remembered in the middle of the night, as you do, that what have I done? Yeah, I mean, there's when you get those stories, Andrew, about people dunking the clocks in paraffin and oil and stuff, I mean, again, I think that that's probably better than nothing, but obviously it's not good practice. But the whole, when I used to be in retail, before I actually gotten into clocks, people would say, oh, my granddad used to put a little pot of paraffin or kerosene in the bottom of the case with some cotton wool. And I always used to think, well, what good is that going to do? But actually, I think that evaporating and kind of condensing on the movement is probably why you get those very oily movements. But of course, they do run. It's not considered good or, in fact, best practice nowadays. But there's a heck of a lot of stuff that is considered, well, not good practice, but widely adopted practice. There's probably a heck of a lot more damaging. Now, I did oil inside there, that long bearing where the hour wheel and the center arbor go together. I think I put some graphite pencil on it. So I've just been a bit naughty and put some more on as well. So I'll just go around here. So installing the front plate now. I forgot that we're going to harden the pallets, so we'll take those out and do those. And we've also got to oil between the plates, so all the lifting pieces and stuff like that. But I'll just get those levers before I forget. As I say, I'm probably going to try and put the clock in the case tonight. I'll forget time, but it's definitely worth, after a couple of weeks of running, just going around all the bearings and checking that you have gotten everything. So I think I've got all the front plate stuff now, unless somebody's spotted something that I've missed. I'm oiling from the top, by the way, in relation to gravity. And we talked about this before, that if you oil like underneath a bearing, like at this side, and you leave a little oily mark on the plate, what that tends to do is it tends to drag the other oil out of the bearing. Whereas if you oil from the top in relation to gravity, then at least if you make a mark on the plate, the oil is going to run into the bearing rather than out of it. So I think we're kind of okay there for now. We will just have a little check around later. But yeah, we've oiled our winding work. We've oiled all our bearings here, unless I've missed something, which is not impossible. And so let's just have a look inside the plates, which is not so easy for you people to see, I know. So I'm not massively familiar with these movements, as I said, so I'm just going to go around quite sort of slowly. So we've got the lifting piece for our hammer here. So with these, can't really show you inside this, but where you've got components like that, the hammer and the lifting piece, it's best to oil when they're touching one another, because obviously if you do that between the two, capillary action will draw the oil into that bearing. And also you don't run the risk then of that lifting piece coming round and missing the oily bit altogether. So if you can, and I'll get some pliers. If you can, then oil when the mechanism is actually in place. So let's just go around. You might be able to see there. To just move it round like that. So point the stick here. If you can see, I don't know if you can, but the lifting piece is moving round. It's moving in that direction as we see it. And here is the lifting element of the hammer. And you can see those two components are touching now. Oh, hi, Ontario, Canada. Happy New Year to you as well. Have you got snow? Anybody got snow? We've got a few sprinklings of snow today. I presume Ontario has got a lot of snow, but maybe it's my lack of knowledge of weather. Anyway, So there we are. I don't know if you can see, but I've oiled where the two components touch there. So that's going to automatically put the lubrication where we want it. Now on this clock, we've got that passing striking hammer, but we've also got this chap down here that does the hour striking. So let me just look where that is lifted from. And that is, oh gosh, all the way up inside here, which is much more difficult to see. So I'm just going to allow the striking train to run. And all right, it's just struck. There we go. So maybe can't see in there, but down here, the lifting pin, which is brass, is just about to, in fact, it has started lifting the main hammer. So those two components are touching, so I can just about get in there. Hold the oiler on there for a second. And let's just see that go around. Yep. Then we've got other pins on this wheel, which are warning pins, I seem to remember. So we want to get the clock into warning. Let's just, again, move the old hand round a bit. If it's going to work, which would be useful. There we go. So the clock's run to warning now. So for new people, for beginners, warning is part of the striking mechanism, the striking sequence that you get on, Ottawa, 15 centimeters. Oh, that's good. That here would completely stop everything. That everything would grind to a total halt. It's pretty impressive. So yeah, warning is a preliminary part of the striking process you get on most clocks. Not all. Some clocks have no warning, but it's the clock getting ready to strike. So now I've got to figure out where the warning is actually stopping, because I should. It's not at all where I thought it was. Right, got it. Okay. So it's round here. Ooh, that frame knot isn't tightened up yet. That's not a good idea. Should give him a proper spanner, but I'll just give it a little tweak with these flat nose pliers. Wouldn't be a good idea if the frame knots came undone. Right, okay. So here's our warning look. You can see this pin driven into the rim of the warning wheel, or the crossing of the warning wheel, or even the spoke of the warning wheel, and touching on that warning piece. So a bit of D5 on that, a bit much. If you get a bit too much oil on, you can always soak it off or wick it away with a bit of pith wood, which is, so this is pith wood here. It's an absorbent, very lightweight absorbent wood that comes out of the branches of an elder tree, I think. So we've got warning, we've got lifting for our main hammer. Yep, we've got lifting for our passing striking. So we need locking now. So once the striking train has done its business, it locks. So let's just let it run, moving the hand on. There we go. So the striking train's running. Oh, I thought of something else we need to. There we go. Okay, so this is really difficult to see, but locking is a little hook-shaped lever buried all the way in there. I can just see it there. If I put my pegwood in from the side, just there, look. So that needs a wee bit of oil on it. And if you've got multiple teeth, like on a clock where you've got, well, an escape wheel, for instance, or you've got striking work with, oh, snow melted. Oh, it's always a shame. Poor kids. Oh, they'll be back at school anyway, I guess. then the oil tends to get distributed round all those multiple points. We don't need any on here on this count wheel, but we do need some on the bearing of that because it's moving, albeit slowly. And we need some on the pin that indexes the count wheel, or the pins, which are just there. Again, there are 2 of those, so let it come round a bit more. So you can see there's quite a lot to it, and it would be easy to miss some, which I may have done. But we've gotten warning, we've got locking, we've got lifting. I think we're getting there. You probably can't hear through the microphone, but it's quite rattly, as I said. The things moving about. So you can always put slightly heavier oil in the top of the striking train to quieten it down a bit. But of course, we had a bit of a discussion on Not Much on Facebook group today about this idea of regular maintenance, which of course is great. The problem with regular maintenance is that nobody can agree. I've just seen something there. Nobody can agree on how often is, the right period between periods of maintenance. And there's a good reason for that nobody can agree. Some people say X years, some people say Y years. I never say any amount of years, because what's important, as Ian said today, the critical thing is inspection, not the maintenance as such. I guess, I don't know anything about cars, but guess if you've got a car and you're driving it up and down the motorway or the freeway, then it's moderately predictable how long the lubrication is going to last between oil changes and things. And it's not really the same with the clock because of environmental conditions. As I said earlier, the environmental conditions vary such a lot from place to place, geographically, dust, heat, where the clock is within a building, convection currents, and so on. So what I would say is it's not the frequency of the maintenance that's important, it's the frequency of the inspection. And again, as we were talking about today or whenever it was, that as part of that inspection, you can look at not only lubrication, so you're looking for that there is some lubrication there, but also the kind of condition of the lubrication. Does it look contaminated? Does it start to go rusty? Is it black? Is it green? All those things that might indicate that you want to have the clock serviced. And also, you can check on things like gut lines for fraying, for safety, for ratchet clicks and things like that. So if you are in the trade, if you're working commercially, then that's a really good opportunity to actually earn some regular income. So not repairing clocks, but going round on a bit of a circuit and inspecting them. And I've found that clients here, not all, but many, are really happy to do that because, of course, they're protecting their objects. So let's just have a little listen. It won't strike with a hammer, being trapped, or my finger in the way. It's quieting down a lot now. And with this, of course, you can also check the efficiency and the effectiveness of the striking mechanism. Here, this is super clever, this clock, because you can't get the striking work out of phase. It's all controlled from this wheel, this kind of central wheel, the locking, the lifting. Oh yeah, you can get the warning. You can have the wrong amount of run to warning, but it's pretty sort of foolproof. But it's a good idea to check. And if you see something where, and I'm just having a look now, if you see something you think, oh, it's not quite right, it's sticking, it's hanging up, something doesn't sound quite right, then check it now, because check it now because it will come back and bite you. Good question, Andrew. Was the residual mineral spirits when used in cleaning these mainsprings sufficient lubrication for these, or would you oil from across the coils, please? I actually used my favorite liquid spray grease, which I know a lot of people don't like, before I put the mainsprings back in, but not much of it at all. The tiniest kind of spray on the middle of the coils, which of course gets, the coils, only one coil, distributed across the whole lot. But I think that's a really important point. And again, I've not done any research on it. But if you clean in mineral spirits, and particularly the stuff I've used on this clock, which is paraffin, it's quite gloopy stuff, then yes, you get a residual kind of oiliness over the whole thing. And I do think that a lot of problems are caused by degreasing and water-based solutions. But again, it needs research. So no, I'm not going to add any more oil to the springs, but I did use a little spray of liquid spray grease, which contains molybdenum disulfide. I've used that grease about, started in 2004, so getting on for 20 years now, and I've had really great results with it. There was, again, somebody on the Facebook group today who was saying that they've had a lot of experience of mainsprings breaking sort of immediately after a clock has been repaired. And I think there's maybe a couple of things there, again, to investigate. And one of them is, are those springs being cleaned in water-based solutions? And not that I know that that causes a problem, but it would certainly cause an alarm bell. Or are they cleaned in an ultrasonic? And again, I'm not saying it causes a problem, but it would be something I would consider, because touch wood, and it's probably going to bite me in a minute, in 20 years of kind of practice now, I've only had one spring break sort of immediately after overhauling a clock, and it was one of those very hard, high quality French carriage clock springs in a Grand Sonnery carriage clock. And I was speaking to a watchmaker, London watchmaker, the other day, and he said on the older watches, he actually leaves the spring in the barrel now. And this is somebody who's super highly respected, because he thinks the stress of taking the spring out and refitting it actually can cause them to break. But anyway, that's some thoughts for another day. So I guess what you could do with these clocks, and probably people do, is they put the thing together and then they put a couple of dobs of oil on the mainspring, like I would do with a watch, and that gets distributed. I'm perfectly happy with that. Some people wipe the whole spring with a cloth or something, which is fine, of course, but I've never noticed a problem, he says. But of course, one has to try and keep an open mind on these things. Okay, so I think we're done with oiling. So let's just harden these pallets. I forgot to do that. Now it's wound, so we need a bit of white. Which I've just chucked in the bin. Always great getting things out of the bin again. I had almost beyond belief, had a bit of a tidy up, and cutters, and got some boxes for what I call the errant wire, which is that wire that when you put it in a drawer, it always gets tangled up. And of course, so it's now up on the shelf, so I can't get to it anymore easily anyway. Let's just tie up this escape wheel like that, bit of soft iron binding wire, just so it can't spin. When we take our pallets out, so just, I should have tested it first, shouldn't I? But you can see, well, you can't see now because I've tied up the escape wheel, but pallets are working fine. So I hope when I harden them, because we had to soften them, not soften them, but temper them to check, or to try and ensure that they wouldn't break when we bent them back into shape, because they'd been bent out of shape. So what I'm a bit concerned about now, of course, is that when I heat them and quench them, then they're going to distort, and the escapement isn't going to work properly. So a little bit got my heart in my mouth. I'm sort of slightly tempted actually just to leave them, but of course, if I do that, then I don't quite know how hard they are. Let's just have a look with a fine file. Yeah, they're soft. Okay, so I'm not going to get away with that. I'm just going to kind of protect the no, I'm just going to heat rapidly. Sorry, I changed my mind. That's going to be, it's going to set on fire and cause all sorts of problems. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to heat as rapidly as I can the end of the pallet and then quench it in cold water, which I've got waiting here in the wings. So you've got some ice floating on the top of that, so that's good. In fact, I'll bring that into there. Sorry about the can. Always bad practice. I should have a label on that. It's bad news to have food cans in your workshop. That's not good practice. Don't do that at home, people. Parts in water. Yeah, it's popular now, Adele, to clean clocks in water-based solutions, and I've tried it, and of course there's environmental and kind of health and safety benefits, so I do get that, but they end up very degreased and you get a lot of squeaking and all that kind of stuff, so not a major fan of it. Clean them in kerosene probably isn't ideal, but it's certainly what I do, at least for the time being. Right, I'm going to put and definitely mainsprings. Yeah. The thing is, we've gotten the new fire detector things, fire heads, smoke heads directly above. So I'm going to bring down the fume hood thing and hope that that sucks up the smoke. Otherwise, the thing will go off. Anyway, if it goes off, I'll just open the windows. Right, I'm going to get my torch, which is here, and right now, yeah. I'm just going to heat these pallet nibs to, sorry about the noise, bright cherry red or hot red as soon as I can, quickly as I can, quench immediately in cold water, and then do the other side. That's it. Not too much drama. And as such, no fire alarm yet. Get rid of that. So let's just have a little test. Yeah, and if you can hear, but totally different sound now from those pallet tips. So they're hard. Normally with hardening, what you would do is you would temper afterwards, but these are not stressed in that way. So they're supported by that kind of softer material. So no need to let those back. We can leave them as hard as they're going to be from that little thing. If I was doing that like normally, I would do it against a fire brick to kind of bounce some of the heat back. And I might just leave it a few seconds more. No need to clean those up. There's very little, if any, oxide on there. I mean, they're a little bit dark looking, but I'm not fussed about that. I'll just wear off. Let's get right way around. Get those on there, put that on there. Is that correct? Yeah, probably cut. Oh. Sorry, there's a camera. Put that off. Try not to cut through the escape wheel. Oh, wire. And let's just check our escapement again. Good. Nice. Really happy with that. He says, let's have a look. Right, the pallets have moved a little bit, so we've now got too much. Or you might remember the discussion about the deadbeat escapement. It's quite damaged this escape wheel, but we've got the situation where there's more. You see that there's more internal drop than external drop. And on some of the teeth where they're damaged, it's just hanging up a little bit. So I need to just bend those pallets together. Now, of course, the problem is I just hardened them. So, well, they're not hardened in the middle. So let's keep our fingers crossed. That chat through there. Put that back on there. I think it's now because I've bent them in rather than up. They're probably a little bit deep. Let's just look at safe locking. Thought it was going too well. I'll put my gloves back on in a minute. Yeah, so I've got two things I can do here. So if it's just catching on the back of the exit pallet, you might remember that we filed these back to create new surfaces and then bent them back into shape again. So I can either, yes, Daryl, re-oil. I haven't oiled it at all yet. No, no, you were right. I haven't oiled the pallets at all, or the pallet arbor yet. Absolutely right. I'll do that when I've finished messing back. I've done the escape wheel. So the two things, I've got two options here, or one option. One is to increase the center distance with this little bridge thing here, which I presume is what it's for, like that, kind of adjustable. And the other one is to file the pallets back. But because I've already sort of mutilated the pallets quite a lot, I'm just going to bend this back a little bit. I'll bend it down, see if it'll rotate. Oh, it has rotated, perfect. Probably too much by the look of it. I was slightly surprised that moved so easily. So there can be a little bit of toing and froing here. If you can see or not, but that has increased external drop now from there. We might actually get away with moving it back a little bit. Just put my gloves back on. My greasy fingers all over it. So once we've done this, and thank you for reminding me, oil the pallets and the pallet arbor thing, the little stud, then I think we're done here. Move on to the, I've got this assembly to refit for the suspension, which is kicking about somewhere. Let's have a look. Gosh, it's made a massive difference. I've moved it too far. It's now landing on the impulse space. So let's just rotate that back a little bit. Gosh, it's incredibly small amounts of adjustment. I'm calling them incredibly small amounts of adjustment. Eyeglass. So what we're looking here, when the tooth lands on the pallet, unlike an anchor recoil schema where you've got one continuous curve between the kind of impulse part of the pallet and the recoil part of the pallet, deadbeat escapement, of course, you've got a distinct zone or area. You've got the dead bit where the tooth has to land, and then you've got the impulse face. It shouldn't land on there. It's landing on there then. So we just need to spend a few minutes Now, if you get to this stage where you've got an escapement like this that's really had a bit of a life, then remember, if you get more than 80%, it's working more than 80% of the time, or 90% of the teeth, then of course, you can think about starting to manipulate the teeth. But if you do that before you begin filing bits off, then remember that each tooth relates to another one. And in fact, each tooth relates to another two, because this one, for instance, when it's on the entry pallet, relates to this one. But when this one comes around and it's on the exit pallet, it then relates to one up here. So you've got to be a little bit careful when it comes to removing material. In fact, you've got to be very careful. And what I would say is, in a case like this, let's say the escapement's running with a minimum amount of drop on 98% of the teeth. You've got a couple of teeth that are problematic. If you can, and you have to, remove material from the non-working side of the tooth, so from the back of the tooth. That way, you're only going to affect that tooth in relation to that palate in that place. If you take it off the working side, then you've got this situation which takes a bit of getting your head around, where it affects two other teeth, and you can get yourself into a real pickle. Let's just go around the whole wheel. And it's a bit boring, but check that it's actually free. So the exit palate is very close to the back of the teeth now, so I can't move any closer. Seems okay. Again, if it's scraping slightly, you'll probably hear it when it's running. When it's inside the wooden case, because of the kind of, what do they call it? Like a guitar sort of sound box type thing, you'll hear it scraping. So when you sat there in a night, so on the entry palette, just going to put a tiny blob of D5 there, which will work its way around. You don't want it in the root of the teeth, which I think is actually what I've got. I was a bit hasty there, so I'll get my pith wood and just soak that off. And then on the palette arbor, I'll just put a bit of D3. You can see I'm not cleaning my oiler between the two. So I'm going to get cross-contamination. I'm not massively bothered about that. That's not my biggest worry here. I don't know if you can hear, but a D5 has really quietened it down, which can actually be a problem. I've had a lot of people, when I've taken long case clocks back, say it doesn't sound like their clock, because obviously you clean up all the oil and goop and things, and then you put D5 or something on the pallets and on the crutch pin, and the whole thing's like really, really quiet. And they say, gosh, that's really quiet. It doesn't sound like our clock. I said, it's fine. Give it a couple of days and that oil will distribute itself and it'll be back to its old self again. Okay, let me just look for some parts, other components that we might have missed. So I've oiled that, put that thing back around there. Now this is probably where I find it doesn't fit together. So this assembly, which doesn't come apart, so you have to clean it in one piece. I mean, you could get it apart, but it would be sort of destructive process. And I've already had my problems with the winding work, so I don't want to do that again. It's not a dynamic part as such either, so I'm not massively bothered about it. I mean, well, it's the old story, depends what you call clean. Don't get me started on that. Just giving it a bit of brush to get the sort of residue off. Okay, and now I've got the slightly embarrassing situation of trying to remember which way around it goes. So presumably it goes like that. That little wheel there sticks through the dial. So I'll get it in the middle of its travel in terms of fast and slow, which is this, where's my pointy stick, which is this bearing here halfway along that thread. Just move that to one side so you can see. So let's just see how far it'll go in that direction. Yeah, pretty much to the bottom of the thread. And I think it goes right to the top in the other direction. Yeah, it does. So I'm going to put it in the middle, and then we know that we've got a pretty much an equal amount of regulation either side. Wee bit of oil on there, wee bit of oil on there, wee bit of oil on there, and a wee bit of oil on there. But then all working surfaces. Going a bit bonkers. Anyway, so exciting thought of actually getting it done. Okay, I'm not bothered, by the way, about leaning it on its back plate here. I keep thinking, am I sucking the oil away from the movement? And I'm not, because of course it's got all that junk on the back plate that's keeping the bearings away. So that can go on there. And I think that's it. Just find a pair of brass tweezers. Screw. And put that in there. Sorry, you can't see from my hand. Yeah. Let's tighten that up a little bit. Maybe need a bigger screwdriver just to. Oh, no, that seems to have got it. Good. So that's that. Let's just sanity check the whole thing. So that must go through there. I guess the American clock people will tell me if I'm wrong, but I guess the I love the fact that you want everything to set on fire. The hook is outward facing, so you can just hook the pendulum on from the back. I guess that's right. And where does this go? Goes through there. and hooks in there like that, pull that down. And the pin's dropped out. Dash. Well, it was there a minute ago. Hey ho. Oh well, sorry about that. Lost the pin out the top of the suspension spring, so need to fit a new pin in there, but that's an easy job. Bit of a shame. I was quite like the idea of the original one, but there we are. So movement's pretty much done by the look of it. Of course, I've got no idea whether it's actually going to run or not yet. So let's just set that to one side. I'll get some acid-free paper because I don't want it getting too dusty while I'm messing about with the other stuff. Again, you've got to be a little bit careful with this. I've had clocks on test and then delivered them and wrapped the movement and the dial and everything in acid-free paper. When I've got to the house or whatever it is, realize the paper's been touching the movement and it sucks some of the oil out. So got to be a little bit careful there. Just keep that clean for a minute or two, and then let's find our hands and we can just de-rust them because they're a bit rusty. Times it. Right, okay. Hands. Oops. So here they are. Now, should be a little bit more thorough with this than I'm probably going to be, but what I'm going to use for the de-rusting of these, don't know if you can see in the light, they're not bad, but they've got a bit of, if I just get it in the reflected light, you can see a bit of rust there, look, but they're still nicely blued. I'm not a major fan of rebluing hands. You might think I'm not a major fan of doing anything, which is probably true. Because it's just so difficult to get the bluing kind of even like they do in the factory. And I don't mind that kind of, I don't particularly want the rust there, but you can see on this one, it's more extensively rusted. I guess it's more rusted because it probably had more people's fingers on it. And the stuff on your fingers, whatever it's called, is acidic and it causes rust. So looking for I'm just going to put a different bit of paper down just to prevent it from getting too yucky. Use a bit white cotton. Not my normal thing, but it'll do. Just keep the steel wool away from the movement when I put it back down. So got some 4/0 steel wool. Remember, it's a fire hazardous steel wool, burns like crazy. So keep it in a sealed box. And if it's gotten something like this on it, which is white spirit based wax, then dispose of it responsibly, put it in water and then put it out somewhere where it can degas. I've forgotten what they call it now. Is it exothermic? It can set on fire, and once it burns like crazy. So just be careful with it. And of course, it's also very sort of fibrous, and I don't want that going either on the clock or up my nose. So you could wear a respirator or a mask, but what I prefer to do to lubricate the thing is just to soak it in microcrystalline wax, and then let's just work on the back. And it doesn't take much because it's very sort of light rusting there. Now, what I would do normally is to do this, then wash them again in white spirits or paraffin or something, just to wash off any fibers of steel wool. It really doesn't take long. It's the back of the minute hand. Just going to do, you can see there's some of the rust there that's come off. Oh, the surface rusting anyway. The thing will still be pitted, but I can live with that. Brass tweezers really absolutely worth the weight in brass. So like all these sort of manual cleaning processes, it's a case of deciding where to stop. Obviously, if you keep going, then you're going to wear all the bluing off. And then you might think, well, I want to re-blue. If you re-blue the hands, it's one of those things people try all sorts. They try hot air gun. In the old days, you used to get something called bluing salts, which were like really dangerous. And the reason they were dangerous was it was like having a, does anybody remember the old chip pan where you used to fry potatoes in it? Like an open cauldron of boiling fat. If any water went in there, the water boiled and it chucked the whole thing in your face. And there were some horrific accidents with bluing salts. I don't think you can actually get them anymore. I've not seen them anyway. You can try brass filings, you can try silver sand, but it's just some way of keeping the heat even. There we go. So worked over the surface there. Let's get our Glasgow brush. Because you could try some de-rusting thing, whatever they call that stuff. I forgot to call it now. But anyway, some de-rusting phosphoric acid, is it, on these. Personally, I'm happy to do a bit like that. This bit, if you can see in the light, they can still see the pitting, but the kind of three-dimensional red rust has disappeared. There's still a little bit down here, so I'm just going to do a little bit more. And that's, again, the beauty, in my view, of a manual cleaning process. You can do a bit and then think, is it where I want it to be yet? Or do you do a bit more? Whereas if you go on for kind of a batch cleaning or batch refinishing, then you lose control of that. And that, to me, is not good. And also, it's not something I would kind of normally say, but because I don't do masses of cleaning on clocks in a way that maybe a lot of people do, it's actually quite sort of therapeutic and good fun. Maybe it's not good fun, but you know what I mean. There we go. So again, if that patch of rusting on there irritates me, might come back to it. What you can also do is disguise it a little bit with a pencil, which actually, again, slightly sort of abrasive and removes kind of three-dimensional rust from there, but it's actually quite smooth now. So for me, can't really see in the camera, but really happy with that. You can see the pitting. There we are, you can see the pitting. Well, the color's pretty even. It's not great, but I'm happy to go with that. As I say, maybe you should wash it again, but no time on air. Let's just move over to the hour hand. Same thing. If you got this wax, by the way, and it gets all skanky after a bit, mine's got full of stuff, all bits of stuff in there. Rather than, it's quite expensive, just put the lid on and put it in a bain-marie. So boil it up, boil the tin basically in water, and the whole wax will melt and all the junk goes to the bottom. And when you open it up again, it looks like new. So Yorkshire, top Yorkshire tip for you there. Oh, okay. Right. So Jeremy says rifle cleaning solutions like hops or hoppies are worth checking out. It's a really good point, actually, Jeremy, because I notice in horology, the Facebook people, that there isn't a lot of cross-contamination, and not between kind of things that people use, but between disciplines. You know, in my other life, I'm a conservator, and one of the great things about conservation is not, you know, the whole time. Yeah, Andrew, the microcrystalline wax leaves a protection of layer of protective wax as well. But there's a heck of a lot of interdisciplinary action. So our clocks have got paper, glass, wood, textile, ceramic, you name it in there, because they're multimedia objects. You can just talk to somebody about their discipline, and it's amazing how much you can learn. And I think it's a great sadness to me that it seems, at least, that the clocks people only talk to clocks people. when I was a student and then teaching at West Dean College, which is down in Sussex, one of the really great things about that was that there were all different disciplines for different, different disciplines, books, paper, wood, you named it. So you could just go and knock on somebody's door. And I think that's a really great shame that I don't see that happening more in horology. The clocks people, maybe I'm oversimplifying it and being unfair, but seem to tend to talk to other clocks people. So I once did Airbnb, and it was great. Really loved it. And one of my regular visitors, or whatever they're called, guests, was a gunsmith. And as Jeremy said, we used to talk about hardening, for instance, hardening materials, and they have a very different approach to us. And it was really cool. I learned a lot from that thing. So try and build up your contacts. And I would say, I mean, Jeremy maybe does quite a lot of this because obviously you're kind of in the trade and stuff, and you probably work with wood people and ceramics people. There's a really great ceramics conservator down there, Brighton, who does dials and things for me. And it's just great to bounce ideas off people, because you tend to get stuck in these little workshops. And so you could happily spend 20 minutes on these hands and just gently kind of lift the little areas of corrosion until you're happy with them. But we may be done there for now. I'm doing the time, 10 past. So I'll give them a brush. And actually the hour hand, which was less corroded, you can see, well, it's come up really nice. Super pleased with that. No need to re-blue that at all. And I get why people want to do more interventive processes, because they're great fun and it's always good and, kind of like good for your soul to get stuck in. Well, maybe not necessarily all that good for the clock, but anyway, so let's just peg out that hour wheel pipe, get it cleanish. Right. Good. So get rid of that. And that's the time clean. Great. Okay, so we've done our hands, we've done our movement, and because I was such a good clockmaker, I did the bell and the gong right at the beginning, so they're done. I don't have to kind of have that thing where I think, oh, I've got to do the pendulum or whatever. So that's all done. So I think we're in a position where we can move back to the case. He said, just thinking what else there is to do. I'm going to sneeze. Maybe that steel wool's got in my nose. Put those down. Yeah, I think that's it. So you might remember, let's just zoom out a bit. Probably haven't got room to fit the case on here. Just make a bit of room. Well, the case is pretty much done. I cleaned it, or what I call cleaned it anyway, with deionized water, Vulpex soap, and a little bit of isopropyl alcohol right at the beginning. But it's been kind of hanging up on the wall, so that's there. Of course it is. So it's gotten a bit dusty. So the first thing I'm going to do is to vacuum inside. You might remember, oh gosh, it was a long time ago now, wasn't it? I did this repair here, glued it with liquid hide glue, and then put this bit of cotton tape on to reinforce that joint. Plugged up some extra holes that had been made, stripped threads. Haven't made a back yet, so I need to do that. But let's just have a little vacuum up somewhere. I have gotten my brush. There it is. So I've got my varnish brush, which is really great for getting inside there. Gonna just vacuum up. 1 minute. It's one of my most favorite parts. So, somebody was asking maybe last week what I'm going to do with the clock when it's finished, and I couldn't really think on my feet. But what I'm going to do first is to offer it back to the people that gave it to me for free, and they can look at this set of live streams. I don't think they'll want it back, but they might do, and that would be nice for it to. Sorry, I'm going to sneeze. Let's get these screws out here. I think with these objects, you know, I don't know if you people watch YouTube and stuff like that, but there's always a bit of a sort of unfinished business when there's a lot of work gone into a restoration or a repair or a intervention or whatever you call it, and then the object hasn't got anywhere to go. I always think that's a bit of like a bit of a damp squib. So I'm going to offer it back to the people that owned it, and if they want it, that's fantastic. Otherwise, I'll use it for short course stuff. Right, so somewhere I've got the dial, which we vacuumed and cleaned ages ago. It's got these little touched in numbers. Very happy with them. Love them to bits. I think the tabs are broken off the back, but there's probably enough there to hold it together. It's all pretty fragile. There we go. But again, the beauty of cleaning or dusting or refinishing or whatever you want to call it, as you go along and getting all this peripheral stuff done, is that when you come and the movement's finished, you resist the temptation just to push the movement in a dusty case or not bother with a pendulum or something. And again, somebody mentioned it on the Facebook group. It's amazing how many clocks get a return to clients, and you can't regulate the clock because the rating note is jammed up or something like that. So I'm banging on now, but it's nice to do those things first for me. There we go. Let's get those screws back in. I don't think there's anything else going there. Yeah. I can see, which I can't. Sign it. It's an interesting question, actually. Again, of course, there's this whole issue of, which is an unanswerable question, really, of people that sign their work, as in they date their work or scratch the movement or something. In the world that I occupied during the, you know, for my actual job, that would get me kicked out of the profession. But there's an argument, of course, that those old, what some people call graffiti marks, are in fact quite useful in terms of sort of the history of the object. But what I can do is, so we repaired that bezel, didn't we? Really happy with that. What I can do is, the back it was missing completely. So I'm going to get a bit of Perspex to cover this, that Dayglow Perspex, and fit it. I must get that ordered up. And of course, I can put my name on there, new component. I think it'd be quite cool to be able to see inside. And then through this hole underneath here, which I think Jeremy said is to start the pendulum, which makes sense. I can put some wires in with a little LED light, so the light will shine out the back. Right, okay, so that's that. Next, we've got here our glass. Get rid of that. Kicking it over. And so the glass has been soaking. It's quite grubby around the edge. And I might actually just use a bit more of that 4/0 steel wool. Now, if you ever speak to ceramics conservators, they get very excited, understandably, about cleaning glass, and they would shriek, no doubt, if you put steel wool in a historic glass. But I found that, as far as I can see anyway, it doesn't scratch, and it's really good for getting this kind of built up stuff around the edge. Again, normally, obviously, I'd rinse a bit more, but for the sake of the television or not. And somewhere we've got the wire that retains it. Maybe that's still inside the bezel. There you go. Yeah, well, regrettably, Jeremy, it's not actually an internet sensation. I don't think it is anyway, but the good thing about these sessions, I mean, it's great. I enjoy them. I'll do them whenever I can, probably quite a lot less in spring because there's a heck of a lot of actual sort of work piled up. But is that people do keep watching them. It's amazing. I get comments on Open Clock Club the whole time. There's kind of comments every single day about how people have enjoyed it, and they ask questions. So even though you know, that's kind of finished, at least for now, it's doing good work. Doing good work. So I'm happy. Just get some more paper. Few little fractures around the edge of the glass. You may remember it had been kind of re-soldered in the ring, the retaining ring. So I'm going to refit that same wire, just going to, the glass is clean. As much as I'm not a major fan of actually kind of what people would call cleaning things, cleaning the glass on a clock and removing it from the bezel and getting into the corners makes a massive difference to how the thing looks. So I am a total hypocrite. Of course, human being. Let's just see if that wire is there, which it's not. So where is it? I had it earlier. Lost it. As my granny would say, it can't be far, but of course the reality is it can be quite far. Oh well, I had it an hour ago. Just double check that it's not there and I can't see it. No, it's not. There's a wire clip that retains the glass. Hey ho. Anyway, so there's our glass. Not fitted in securely, so I won't put that in there because it's going to get broken. So next thing is to get the movement in, line it up with the dial. Now, this paper that it's resting on is reasonably kind of compliant. I might put a transit blanket down here. I'll just put the glass up there so it doesn't get broken. Looking for that bit of wire. Yeah, transit blankets are really useful things if you're in the mode of moving things around. They're kind of a trade removal blanket and perfect for something like this, where you don't want the case to get scratched. Okay, Daryl. Well, nice. Thank you for joining us. Catch up later. I've got to go back to work. Okay, so during the work, these straps have all got moved and things like that. So I'm just going to start lining them up again, which is going to be a little bit of a faff. The two bottom ones might actually just go in. Annoyed now I've misplaced the glass retaining clip. Anyway, I'll keep looking for it. So it doesn't look like we're going to quite get it ticking tonight. Let's just see how we go. But nevertheless, we're certainly on the home stretch. Let's get a screwdriver too. Refit these screws. I think it was Jonas Troyer, who was showing us his screw gripper during the week. Perfect for this kind of thing. Actually better than these using a bit of Rodico, because of course the trouble with the Rodico is it inevitably is a little bit left on the screw when you put it in the case. Falls in the movement. Right, let's just have it's going to be a bit of backwards and forwards with this, just to look at alignment with the dial. Okay, so the whole thing is, you can see there, far too high. So the straps will move down. Straps not moving up, sorry. Check now. So we've got a little regulating wheel and the two winding arbors. It's about right there. Let's have a look at the top. Okay, so I plugged holes up at the top. So I just need to, sorry, this is all a little bit. That's probably a good job I didn't refit the glass. Scribe is always good for marking these holes. It's very hard, that bit of wood I put in, so I'll have to re-drill that. And leave the strap once moving up. Again, these jobs, they always, oh, that's actually in a really good place. They always take ages. You think it's going to be 10 minutes, putting the clock back together, and it's actually the end of an hour or more. When I'm delivering clocks, I tend to pack up the tools on the day before, but I think, oh, tired. I'll pack up the clock in the morning, and you always end up rushing. Tut tut. Good, that one's going to go in as well. So just got one to drill. Where I've plugged a hole, the thread was stripped. So let's just get out again. Just going to drill it with just find a small drill if I can and use a pin vise or something. Just lift our movement out. Pin vices, many pin vices collected over the years. And little rusty drill. That one looks like the Badger. I like these pin vices with a, I don't know if it's wood, the handle, or whether it's some kind of plastic, but they're really grippy. So just drill a new pilot hole down there without drilling right through to the front of the case. And top tip, when you do that, just put the screw in a bit before the clock's in there. That's going to help you. It's going to help you when you get the actual clock movement in. Chunky screw, I think I'm going to drill it a bit bigger. Oh well. Where there's a will, there's a way. Yeah. Not exactly a museum vac, but good old Henry. People in the States, Henry, by the way, is a brand of vacuum cleaner across here. Not a brand, but a name. Just in case you're wondering. So next week, if we are around, we are going to make a start on Torsion pendulum clock. So that'll be exciting. It's been a few years since I've done one of those, so under the close and watchful eye of Derek. So we'll get that apart, talk about that version of deadbeat escapement. Fun. See how that goes. That'll be great, actually. To I haven't seen many. I don't know if Derek's still there. Is he? Torsion Dell. I haven't seen many, or any, in fact. Torsion pendulum clocks worked on online. There's our false screw. So that'll maybe be a bit of a first. Should be great. Whereas I'm sure there are many live streams that have covered these American clocks, because obviously North America is such a massive market. There we are. It is in and firm, and the holes are all nice, and it's vacuumed out. Super happy with all that. But of course, what I didn't do was put the suspension on. Duh. Right. Okay. And we're up to time now. So maybe actually what I will do is I will find the clip for the glass, which is just in amongst all this junk around here, and get that piece of perspex ordered and put a little pin in the suspension, and we'll actually have the launch. Sorry for a disappointment. Oh, Franklin likes torsion pendulum clocks. Great. Well, you're in good company, Franklin, because if Derek is here, Torsion Dell, they're his thing. Torsion Dell by name, Torsion Dell by nature. Okay, so we're nearly there. We've got our hands derusted. We've got the movement lubricated. I've got to put the pin in the suspension spring, which will take a few minutes, that's all. And put the clip in the glass, which I need to find, get a bit of perspex ordered for the back. And then I think we are done. We'll be able to actually see whether it actually runs. So that's what we'll do next week. The first few minutes, we'll get the whole thing just finished off and put it together, just the outside of the case, and put it up here behind us so we can see it on test. And then we'll get do the unboxing of the torsion pendulum clock, and start taking that apart, talk about letting the power off, all the kind of idiosyncrasies of those clocks, which again are not my specialism, but you've got to start somewhere. So from how to repair pendulum clocks. Torsion Dell has woke up now. We've mentioned torsion pendulum clock. So you're on stage next week, Dell. Your clock is anyway. Now I'm going to probably wimp out with that and use what do they call it? A suspension spring thing, but also order the spring as well. So I might need to talk to you about what size to get and everything. But anyway, we can do that during the week. Or tomorrow, in fact. So great. I'm very happy with that. We're actually right on the last few meters with this clock. Last run home. Let's just, it's not working. Put it up there without breaking the glass. There we go. And we will see you all next week. I think I'm here. So 6 o'clock, 1800 hours on Thursday. We will be back for more live streaming. And then don't forget us on the Facebook group as well. Please, if you've got a job, a clock on the bench, then please take a few photographs and share it with us. Thanks very much and see you again soon. Bye for now.